The moment I introduce you, yeah.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, we are live. We are live now. Good evening, friends. Welcome to the official channel of VS Strategic Business Consulting. Today, we have our guest, Faisal Velani, who is a leadership, vision management, and purpose coach. He's a chief visionary officer of Velani Consulting, based out of Houston, Texas. Uh, I now invite Ms. Velani to come over, Faisal to come over and give us a brief introduction. Today, our session is going to be on vision management and on clarity of purpose. Welcome, Faisal. Thanks a lot for obliging my request and joining us. I know it's a weekend, joining us on this session and willing to share your great pointers with respect to vision management and on clarity of purpose. Thank you.
No,
Over to you.
ab- absolutely, Venkat. It's my pleasure to be here to be able to talk to your audience. Anytime I can relay my message over to new audiences, new people, it's always a pleasure of mine. It lines up with my purpose. It lines up with my vision. So I'm super excited to be here, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to be able to talk to your audience and to be able to pass that message along.
Great. Can I request you to actually give us a brief introduction from your end, your background, and I know you've been into business process management. You're an expert in business process management. How come coming into vision management and getting into this aspect of becoming a leadership or an organizational strategy coach?
You know, Venkat, from a very young age, I think I was always a problem solver by nature, and it's probably a trait of mine that my wife hates the most. I would think because she'll come to me with a problem, and rather than listening to the problem, I'll try to find a solution right away. It's just who I am by nature, right? And it's good and it's bad because sometimes people just want you to listen to them. And that's how I got into BPM, because I would go into companies, I would find efficiencies in their models, but I always had a hard time just finding efficiencies and stopping there, because as a BPM manager, you know that you don't get to implement. You just get to find the problem, and you get to hand that over to a team to implement a solution. And I always like to see things through till the end. And after doing that for a couple of years, after becoming the guy who always addresses the issues, I finally decided I want to be the one who implements change. So even though I was very good at business process, I realized that I was much more efficient being able to talk to C-level executives and C-suite executives to tell them what it is that they need to do. And through my years, I realized that every company has problems and they think they're unique, but they're always the same set of problems that are always being solved by the same habits, right? And they all call it different things, but essentially, if you start implementing these habits within your organization, your problems will either completely go away, or you'll become so good at solving them that eventually your organization will become a machine that works more on opportunities rather than looking for issues. And that's the reason why I got into the field that I'm at right now.
Fantastic, fantastic. This was always lingering in my mind, while we discussed in the past as well as, interacted through LinkedIn. This question was always there. How come a BPM professional getting into this sort of a thing? It's not that, they are separate, but having said that, the concentration would always be towards an operational management and operational excellence sort of a thing, which I'm sure it is there in your, G.I.E point.
Yeah.
Having said that, getting comprehensively into this advisory and a consulting aspect with respect to, in terms of organizational strategy at a, overall vision management level, it was something, I thought it'd be pretty interesting to learn and know from you. And thanks a lot. Now, let's get into the actual process of the session today, right?
Okay.
Right. Faisal, every organization and every individual, with respect to being an employee or an employer, or be, a kind of a prospective entrepreneur, or want to be a, enthusiast with respect to starting a business, One thing we get to hear from every stalwarts or legends in the industry who have proved, right, is about having a clear and a proper vision for the organization. Now, could I request you to elaborate on what is so important and why is it so important about having a vision?
Yeah. I like to describe things in a story. I feel like people learn a lot better as a storyteller more than concepts and concrete facts. So I think Gino Wickman describes this better than anybody else I've ever heard. And if you haven't heard of Gino Wickman, he wrote the book Traction. I actually think I have it right here. He goes, imagine that you have the most productive team, right? Your business is to cut through a jungle and you have the most productive team, the fastest tree cutters, the fastest ground leveler that you ever have. They're led by the best management team. They have really good core values and everybody just seems to get along. It's a well-oiled machine, right? And you start cutting the jungle and your goal is to cut a straight line through that jungle, right? And you start, but nobody is climbing on top of the tree on an occasional basis to see, are you going the right way, right? So your team now starts cutting the jungle, and days goes by, months goes by, years goes by, and you realize you never accomplished your goal. You just kind of went around in circles because the jungle is so massive. So all of these things, they're puzzle pieces of each other, right? You need to start with a purpose. You need to have good values. You need to have the right people. But if you don't have a vision of where you're going, and if you're not tracking that vision on a weekly basis, quarterly basis, annual basis, you might realize that you've hired the right people, you've had the right team, but you've been going in the wrong direction the entire time. And what ends up happening is if you don't do that, eventually that team that is so motivated and that team that is so efficient will start becoming a little bit less efficient. They'll start getting more frustrated because they're not seeing results of all this massive work that they're doing. They get unenthusiastic, versus if you take that same goal, right, and you now have another team right next to you who's not as cohesive, who's not as functional. Their leadership is okay, they're not bad, they're not as efficient, but their leadership is always measuring, right? And I don't mean KPIs, I do mean a vision. They occasionally get up on top of the tree while their team's cutting it, and they're saying, hey, this is the way we need to go, right? So now that team is going to accomplish their goals a lot faster. And by having a great vision and by having progress, their team now tends to gel together better. They start realizing their core values. They are happier within the company because they're accomplishing things, and they get to their goals a lot faster. So people in life aren't motivated by money. They're not motivated by success. They're motivated by progress, right? And as long as they can see progress towards a goal, people will lay down their life for you. I think somebody somewhere stated a quote: give somebody all the money in the world and they won't give up their life. Give them a shiny medal and they'll give up their life for their country, right? And it's so important to note because progress, recognition, that's what people really truly want in life. And that's why a vision is so important to have.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, my next question is we all talk about clarity of purpose, right? And I remember, Simon Sinek's book, Start with
Yes.
the Why. And he beautifully explains, giving Apple as an example, and he explains what is the, importance of why over what and how, and what actually inspires and motivates individuals, be it from the employee aspect or from the customer angle, to actually
Right.
be in a position to be more attracted and have that kind of respect or acceptance to the why than the what and how. So now, if I have to actually request you to elaborate more and tell us what do we mean by clarity of purpose, right?
Mhm.
We understand the why, thanks to Simon Sinek, but
Right.
I know you have a tremendous ability and a skill to explain things in a much simpler way. So, if I could, request you to elaborate on what is the importance of clarity of purpose, and how is it different from vision? Is it not one and the same? If it is different,
Mhm.
right? What is the difference? How should an individual look and work towards the purpose and also align themselves to the vision.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I wanna state that there is an overlap, right? There is a bleeding effect, and within the industry, because mission and vision are spoken about in such interchangeable words, that a lot of people have started to think they're one and the same. But no, you're absolutely right. They are mountains apart, right? They're two totally separate things. And the way I like to describe it to my clients is, think of starting a business like a journey, right? So you have your road, you have your exits, you have your vision, your mountain that you want to climb. But before you start any journey, and Simon says this better than anybody else that I've ever heard of, is why, right? Why do you want to start this journey? What is your purpose? What is your goal? Why do you want to do this? And if we take the jungle cutting example again, right? Cutting the jungle and getting through to the other side, that is just a vision. What got you to get all of these people together, and what convinced these people to cut that jungle for you, right? What is your purpose? Why should they do it? And if you don't have a compelling why, it doesn't matter how great your team is. If your team doesn't believe in your why, they're not going to do the work, right? And your why is what gets you out of bed. I think if you listen to Simon's book, he talks about the golden circle, right? There's the what, there's the how, and there's the why. Every company in the world knows what they do. Some know how they do it. Very few know why they do it. And the reason why your why is so important is he associates it with your human brain, right? And he says there's companies that are fact driven, right? They'll tell you, oh, we have the best computers in the world. We've got 150 gigs space. We're the fastest. Da da da. The reason how we do it is we make these beautiful computers. They're very simple, but decision making is always emotional, and that's why you hear people say all the time, it just didn't feel right. Right? They have no explanation, they have no reasoning behind it. You could give all the facts in the world, it just didn't feel right. I couldn't make that decision. So if you can't talk to the person's brain that makes decisions, which is that why part, I forget what he calls that part of the brain, you're not going to be able to convince anybody to do anything. And I'll give you a very prime example. This is one of the reasons why I got into this field. I was hired on board as a BPM manager for a company here in Houston, and we they wanted to have this digital transformation, and we have the CFO who had completely bought in after doing a center of excellence exercise, and we figured out that their CRM was corrupted. It had to go, right? And the CEO just didn't buy into it, so we had to dig deeper and get more information. We spent a year and a half, collected a ton of data, did ROI assessments, did scalability analysis, we did everything imaginable. And at the end of the day, we were able to prove by facts that this CRM needed to go. Guess what the company decided to do? And they said no, we're not going to do it. And that was because I didn't speak to his purpose. I spoke to facts. I did not speak to the mind that's going to make the decision. And at the end of the day, the answer that I got is it just doesn't feel right. And it wasn't his fault. It was my fault to not be able to realize that and to be able to get through to that person. That's what I was hired on board to do, and I wasn't able to accomplish that. But that is why your why is so important. It's what gets you out of bed. Right. So I'll read you my why real quick. This is my personal why in life. It's I want to become legendary by making the world a better place. That is my one liner. And the reason why is, first, I've always wanted my family name, Velani, to be known. Hence the reason Velani Consulting, right? Not ABC Consulting or Masterclass, whatever. Velani Consulting. I want my name to be known. I'm very egotistical like that, and I have no problem admitting it. Second, make the world a better place. I believe that companies and individuals are what bring change to the marketplace, right? They bring revolutions, ideas, products. And if I can help somebody become the next Steve Jobs or Tim Cook or Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or create the next Apple, I believe that I've made the world a better place. So when I'm having a hard day, when it's 5 in the morning and my alarm's going off and I don't want to get out of bed, this why is what gets me out of bed. I think to myself, I was like, if I don't wake up, am I going to be legendary today? Or is it okay? And every day the answer is no, you better wake up. If you want to be legendary, this is what legendary people do. They get up. So, in a very long-winded answer, that's why your why is so important.
No, thanks a lot. It was brilliantly explained. So it's like it's your motivational factor which wakes you up every morning and say, okay, now today these are the steps that you need to do to get closer to your why or to your overall purpose, right?
Yeah,
Now there are two
absolutely.
aspects. One, developing world and making it big. That is one aspect of it. Second is your name. When they
Yeah.
go hand in hand, I don't know if you really can sleep. Actually, forget about you waking up in the morning, but I don't know if you get chance
Yeah.
to sleep. Fantastic, great. Now,
Absolutely. What Vinka, one thing I will say though, this I think is something a lot of companies do recognize, but when it actually goes into practice, their whys, their visions, their values, they become these 200-300 page binders, right? And the problem with that is you might take a day, a couple of days, you're very pumped up, your team gets together and you write this binder, but then nobody in the company reads it, right? Nobody has time to read a 200-300 page binder. So simplifying your why, simplifying everything that you do in your company is so massively important. So when I'm reading this off to you, this is my page right here, right? This is my one pager. So you have my why, my core values, you have my 10-year statement, you have my 3-year plan, you have my 1-year targets, my quarterly initiatives. Everything's on one piece of paper. And my entire company now knows this is what we're working towards. You can ask anybody in the company and it rolls off their tongue like their birth date because it's so simple. So along with defining your why, make sure it's simple. It's a one sentence why. If somebody got you in an elevator, you can say it within a second and say, "This is what I do," and it's compelling and it makes sense. Make it simple, and people will follow you to the end of the world. That is what I believe in.
fantastic, fantastic. Because I can actually, you know, uh, recollect one of my previous stints in one of the organizations. So I don't want to take the name of the organization, but I want to say that we had a compelling vision.
Mhm.
It was pretty close to 4-year plan, and it was well defined. It had the mission statement as well as what are the core areas that we need to concentrate and achieve in the next 4 years, and
Mhm.
also very well coupled with the defined core values. So work towards the process to ensure that these core values are aligned as well as they support and enable the achievement of the overall goal. But what was missing, we had a lot of roadshows. The leadership team, from the board level CEOs, CIO as well as the CEO, they travel to individual locations, business units to speak and explain about the 4-year plan and vision. What I think was
Right.
missing was having a purpose to it. You want to have a digital transformation, but why do you want to do that digital transformation? Then that aspect was missing. And now that you have showed this one page which detail the entire facets of your purpose and your overall vision, so
Mhm.
every individual within your organization, I'm sure they're going to speak the same language and they're going to understand, perceive, and explain in the similar fashion and understand it in one way, which was
Yeah.
missing in that example. So probably, now it's so very clear. It's just not about having a vision or probably defining the clarity for the overall why, but how well it is simplified, how well it is communicated, how well it is convinced and ensured that all the members within the organization they understand that in the similar fashion, in the same way, so
Right.
that everyone they buy into the overall vision. Tremendous. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Five. Now,
No, I
coming
appreciate
to
it.
my next question on this,
Mhm.
it seems so simple while you're explaining with respect to vision and clarity. Now, we know many organizations today, we operate out of different geographies,
Mhm.
right? So every organization, while they're growing, now let's take the Fortune 500s or probably, recent startups to a couple of organizations. They
Yeah.
operate out of different geographies, which means they are exposed to different cultures, different environment, different expectations, different thought processes. But when an organization has a single vision statement and a single purpose or that why,
Mhm.
how do we ensure, how will the organization ensure that that is communicated and ensure that every individual across geographies they understand that purpose and they buy into it? Isn't it something which is pretty challenging? Equally, it's a huge opportunity there. So
Ye-
how do they ensure to do that? Now, in your case, how would you actually suggest and support your organization? I'm sure you operate and you support and advise some of the Fortune 500 organizations. So how would you advise them on these aspects, considering the geographical dynamics and expectations of different cultures and dynamics?
Yeah, I get this question asked a lot, and my answer is at the beginning is not one that you would think of, and it's not one that's accepted right away. But what I tell people is you don't mold your why based on geographies and your circumstances. They need to mold to your purpose, right? The one advice I would give is what I just said: simplify, right? You need to be able to define your why into one single sentence. And I'll give the same example that Simon gave in his book, right? If you think of some of the greatest leaders in our world, right? Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, anybody else that you could think of, their message, their purpose, their why spread across boundaries, right? And in an age where boundaries limited people, right? We now live in a world where we understand each other a little bit better than what we did 10 years ago. And that understanding, that melting pot is just getting bigger and better and better and better. But they lived in a world where they were constrained within their boundaries. But their mission, their vision was so powerful that you could have asked somebody across continents, "What do you think about this?" And they would have given you their true understanding of it, and they would have followed him, or they would have gotten away from him. And that's the whole point of a purpose, right? I think organizations have such a hard time because when they first define their purpose, instead of attracting people, it will retract people. But that's the point. You want to get rid of the wrong people, the ones that don't believe in your purpose, because the power is not in quantity. The power is in quality, right?
True.
So at the beginning, you're a magnet. You're getting rid of the people that don't want to be there because of opposing forces, and you're slowly attracting the right people and building up the right force. So growth in any industry is never linear, right? If anybody tells you growth is linear, that is not true. It doesn't work that way. Growth is exponential, and that is the way growth should be. So one of the CEOs kind of asked me, they're like, "Well, give me an example." So, and I read this in a book somewhere. If you take 33 steps from where you're standing till 33 steps, that's linear growth. But if you double the step every time, so you took one step, then the next step was 2 steps long, then the next steps was 3 steps or 4 steps long, next step was 8 steps, and so on and so forth. If you did that 33 times, you can circle the world, I think, like 5 times. I don't remember the exact math. But that's the power of exponential growth. So that's why you have to be okay taking 2 steps forward and 1 step backwards. And I think that's the whole truth behind it. Find a why that you can relate to, that you can be excited about, that you can be genuine about. And after that, when you talk about that why, it's never manufactured. You don't have to come up with statements off the that are pre-written. You're just talking off the cuff, but because you believe in it, people will follow you. People will come to you and they will find you and they will say, "Hey, I want to be here. I want to be part of this organization because they're doing what I want to do across geographies." So my advice would be authentic and be simple.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. In fact, your explanation with respect to uh, the purpose and the geographical dynamics, how we should be authentic and how they have to be a proper way where people would get attracted as a magnet. I think It's a tremendous point which you've mentioned. It actually reminds me of one of the statement which Mr. Raja Krishnamurthy, whom I consider to be my mentor. Uh, he is an OD specialist. He comes out saying that, in the current context, if an organization or have to, look into scaling, they should not be considering only the growth or probably being successful. They will have to go look and look society. And came out with a fantastic, 5S new concept where he calls a new 5S system. You actually triggered those points while you were explaining at this moment, and it reminded me of him. Thank you. Thanks for that. Now, coming to my next point, uh, this is something related to the third question that you had just answered. Point is, keep out the geographies and keep out, the dynamics of culture and other things. But the regulatory aspects of different geographies would be different. Now, even if we consider within the US, each state has separate tax laws and everything. So, similarly, across the world, when we typically look at each geography has a different tax norms and different regulatory norms, different labor laws, and different expectations with respect to what the organization can add value to their overall economy or the GDP and other things. So these are certain things, be it social political scenarios, be it the current situation, what we are actually facing, like a pandemic. Now these are completely out of the control of the organization or the leadership and the now, while defining the mission statement and while defining the vision as well as working towards the achievement of that particular goal or an objective, how do you, consider these aspects while you come out? I'm sure you would have worked on some kind of a risk management thing, but what are those aspects that you consider and how do you advise and suggest and consult the CXOs to consider these aspects? Now, this should not affect their overall, this might put a break to their growth, but it should not affect their overall existence, like what happened in a couple of organizations that we get to see and, read in the recent times, what happened in the last 4 months. So what would you suggest and how would you, advise them to consider these aspects?
Yeah. So my formula, right? What I talk about a lot: growth equals innovation plus excellence. That that is something I learned very early in life. That growth in any part, whether it's your business, your life, your career, wherever you want growth, it is not a factor of just growth itself. It is a factor of innovation and excellence. So I give this example a lot. People who are trying to lose weight, right? If they all they focus on was stepping on the scale and the scale not going down, they're never going to lose that weight because they're just focused on that. If they focused on eating right and exercising, the factors of losing weight, they will get there. So same thing with growth with companies. Companies who only work on KPIs, they're only measuring all the time, they're never going to get growth, right? They need to focus on innovation and excellence. But even within innovation and excellence, there's a formula. There's 20% innovation that you need to focus on and 80% excellence. And I think that is where the disconnect is. Companies are so good at coming up with ideas because we're all creative, right? By nature, we're all creative. We can solve our own problems if we wanted to. So ideas are easy. Execution, putting excellence behind that idea is hard. So my example that I give to a lot of CEOs is, let's say you have a kid, right? That kid is innovation. That kid didn't exist in this world. He or she is here now. Best type of innovation there ever is, but that is innovation. But in order for that kid to become the person that they need to become, you better show up in their life every single day, through the good days, through the bad days. When you're not a good parent, when you become a great parent, when they do something bad, you can't stop. That is excellence, and that is what organizations need to apply. So, in regards to current environments and in regards to the way things are happening, it's when I say excellence, it's these habits that you need to implement. So I'll give you an example. My 10-year plan, right? What I was reading to you over here. Part of my 10-year plan, and I'm going to read this verbatim, is Velani Consulting is a $1 billion consulting firm that helps individuals and businesses around the world accomplish their goals. I have started an annual GIE summit where thought leaders, business owners, and philanthropists from all over the world speak on habits for success. I gain my clients through podcasts, keynotes, seminars, and content that I give around the world and is disseminated through an omni-channel approach. Right? That's part of my 10-year plan. That is not constrained by any type of environmental factors. Right? That is a very high level vision that doesn't matter what happens in the world out there tomorrow, unless if aliens come down, my plan will stay in effect, right? It'll go there. Now, if I go to my 3-year target or 3-year picture for part of that plan, one of the things that I have is I'm an established growth influencer on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram with at least 500,000 followers. I have an established podcast that gets millions of downloads a month with names like Tony Robbins, Gary Vee on the guest list, and so on. That can change, right? Instagram can go away, LinkedIn can go away, YouTube can go away. So the way you work on your 10-year plan is you break it all the way down to quarterly initiatives. You do 10-year, 3-year, 1-year, quarterly, and even your quarterly is broken down into a project. And then from that point onwards, now that you worked on the business, you now start working in the business. You execute the plan. And on a weekly basis, I have a meeting with my team where we look at our quarterly initiatives to say, are we on track? Do we need to readjust? Do we need to refocus? On a yearly basis, I meet with my team for an annual session to say, are we on track for a 3-year plan? Do we need to readjust? Do we need to refocus? So it's a balancing act. You need to figure out a way to work in your business, which some organizations are great at, but they're not good at working on their business. They're always just looking for issues to solve rather than working on opportunities. And solving issues is going to make you good. And this is not my quote, this is Jim's quote, Jim Collins. But working on opportunities will make you great. And then there's the flip side. There's organizations that are so good at innovating, at coming up with ideas, but that's all they do. They don't execute, right? Jim calls this the doom loop, where they come up with a brand new idea, they work really, really hard, they realize that the idea is hard, they drop it, they have another flash of brilliance, another great idea, work really hard. And what happens is you don't gain momentum. And momentum is scientifically proven, right? Momentum is not a genie in a bottle. It's not a facade. It's true. It's real. So gain momentum by implementing both of these habits. And doesn't matter what climate you're in, you will survive. And some of them will even thrive, right? If you look at the current situation we're in, there's some companies who are thriving, who shouldn't have been thriving, but they had a great model, they had great leadership, they were prepared. And there's some companies who are chasing the new shiny rock, and now that rock is gone and they don't know what to do. So that is how you define a vision, and that's how you stick on and make sure that your vision is executed the right way.
Brilliant way of explaining that. And I'm amazed. Great. You have a specific model called as GIE, Growth,
Mhm.
Innovation, and Excellence.
Mhm.
Can you throw some light on it, elaborating it? What do you actually mean? Because many of your videos and your recent podcast, you actually spoke about it. In fact, in your website, when we typically look into it, there is one specific, orientation video which is dedicated towards it. It's a brilliant way of explaining, and I'm sure it's not specific to one specific industry. It is industry and domain agnostic, right?
Yes.
So it talks about growth, it talks about innovation, it talks about excellence, and it encapsulates the engagement and collaborative activity in your video. So can you actually throw some light and elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, it'd be my pleasure. So, as I mentioned earlier, I had figured out, I'd codified the formula for growth. And like I said, I'm a problem solver. So in general, I like to put things down on a piece of paper so I can have it in front of me. So growth in my mind is 20% innovation, 80% excellence. That is the formula. Now, the way to get innovation and excellence is you have to implement 5 habits within your organization to continue to have that innovation and that growth. And those 5 habits are: number one, you have to simplify your organization. That's my number one habit. So by simplifying, I mean, what's your why, right? So here's my simplification. What's your why? What are your core values? What is your destination, right? Vision, where do you want to go? What's your 3-year target, your 1-year picture, and your quarterly initiative? That is, according to me, simplifying your organization. And the reason why I call them habits is, again, this is where companies miss the mark. They do this once and then they're like, oh, we're done. A habit is a campaign. It happens regularly. It's something that your body just knows how to do, right? Well, like driving home, it's a habit. You don't think about it; it just happens. So you can't stop these activities. The at the point that you stop, your organization starts becoming stagnant and starts moving backwards. So you simplify every part of your organization. Habit number two is to select the right people, right, within your organization. And unfortunately, organizations have been taught to hire based on needs, right? I need a marketing person. I'm going to go find a marketing person. I need a BPM manager. I'm going to go find a BPM manager. And that's great. But if you don't hire based on your values, you might find a qualified candidate. But if that qualified candidate doesn't believe in the way you do things and doesn't believe in your vision, you're not going anywhere. And that's why Simon's rules of starting with why, having a value, it's so important. Right. So one of my values in here is to be in pursuit of excellence. So that for me means consistency. I do the same thing over and over and over again until I can measure it and have results. But if I find the best marketing personnel, but all that person does is he or she jumps from program to program. Let's try Infusionsoft. Let's try Pardot. Let's try what are the other programs out there without giving it enough time, we don't match, right? And I'm not saying your way is wrong or my way is wrong, but in this organization, we don't match. So I need to find somebody who's going to pursue excellence. So that's habit number two, is to select the right people. Habit number three is to solve issues. And that I think is key for organizations. I take anybody who's on this call or take any organization, when you ask them what the biggest problem is, they'll probably tell you we have too many meetings and we can't seem to solve our issues, right? That is like across the board for everybody. And the problem is because they're always trying to solve what's in front of them, they don't look under the curtains. Right? So solving issues means get to the root cause of the problem. Once you get to the root cause, you'll solve that issue and you'll solve so many other issues that were going to come up that weren't even on your radar yet. Right? And we have a very specific way that we get to the root cause of the problem. I think Albert Einstein said that if he had 60 minutes to save the world, he'd spend 59 minutes defining the problem and he'll spend 1 minute solving the problem. Yeah. And companies do the complete opposite. They take 30 seconds to define the problem. Got it. Okay, now let's go solve it. And it's just such a backwards way of doing things. Habit number four, and this is my BPM side coming out, is systemization. Right? This is where you see accelerated growth. So make sure that the activities that should happen on a daily basis, weekly basis, annual basis, you've got them recorded and you've got them automated. And the reason why is, like I said before, people don't want to push buttons anymore. They don't want to work on an assembly line model. They want to be strategic. They want to provide values. They want to solve problems. They want to take the organization forward. They want to progress. And a lot of companies are working back in the 80s, 70s model of, okay, let's create an assembly line. Let's push buttons. Let's pick up papers. Let's drop them there. We now live in a world, whether you like it or not, where computers, systems can do so much of our work. You can either see that as a drawback or you can see it as an opportunity to say, the one resource that I can never get back is time. And this world has provided me more time now to grow, to gain knowledge, to get better. Right? So those are the people that are going to succeed, and those are the organizations that are going to succeed. And my habit number five is C, and that is defining the right KPI. So I work on creating a balanced scorecard, which again is just 8 to 12 numbers, not these 40, 50 page dashboards, 8 to 12 numbers that you as a leadership team need to see to be able to make swift decisions in the market. If you implement these habits, these 5 habits, I guarantee you, doesn't matter what organization you are, what market you're in, what competition you face, even in your personal life, right? Doesn't matter what you do. If you implement these 5 habits, you will outbeat any competition. You will outbeat yourself. You'll become a better version of yourself and you'll continue to grow. So these 5 habits lead to innovation and excellence. Innovation and excellence leads to growth. And if you notice, this is how all great companies behave. They might call it different things, but if you go into their organization, this is what they do on a daily, weekly, yearly, quarterly, and basis. This is what they work on. So that is my advice to them.
Fantastic, fantastic.
Yeah.
My last question for the day before I actually, give out some pointers from what we have got from the other sources.
Mhm.
What suggestion and advice would you give for people who are looking to get into entrepreneurship? And what advice would you give for people who are enthusiastic and they have a vision, they want to do something, but there's something which is stopping them, be it, a self-confidence or probably, they've never tried that. So
Yeah.
what kind of suggestion or what kind of things that they need to think from their thought process, what advice and suggestion would you give to such people?
The people out there who are wanting to start a business, the first thing I would tell them is don't start a business for money. I don't absolutely don't do it for money. Money is a factor. Money is a product of what you want to do. Again, I think money is growth, right? So money is a byproduct of what you want to accomplish. But it's not to say that you won't make money, but there's been surveys done all over the world, again, scientific facts, right? That people who continue to move up the ladder and their only decision making was a higher paying job, if you interview any one of them, predominantly they're unhappy in life. Versus the people who continue to move up the ladder and they made their decisions based on their purpose, what they like to do, what they enjoyed. They might not be that far up in life, but their happiness meter, their health, their wealth, their life, their family is, I mean, through the roof. It's phenomenal how much younger they are, how much energy they have, and how happy they are in life. So don't chase money, chase excellence, and the money will come find you. Right? It's I'm a big Bollywood movie fan, so I'll tell you this message was in the movie Three Idiots. This is my Bollywood side coming up, but chase excellence, and you will absolutely find it. And the second part, to the people who've defined their purpose, they know what it is they want to do. They're very clear on their goals, but they have fears of just starting. I will tell you that you're inches away from success. It literally inches away from success. And the only thing standing between you and success is that wall of fear. So if you only knew how close you were, you take that step. So burn the boats. Don't have a plan B because it only distracts you from plan A. Figure out what you want to do. And if you're authentic, if your purpose is correct, if you believe in what you want to do, there's a message in the book, The Alchemist. If you really truly want something, the entire universe conspires to get it for you. So if you've got the universe on your side, you have nothing to worry about, right? So just be true to your purpose and you'll get there. You'll absolutely get there.
This reminds me of Arnold Schwarzenegger. He said, I hate plan B. I never had a plan B. And
Yeah.
it made a lot of sense. In fact, Denzel Washington, in one of his speech, I think in University of Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
and
His, the graduation
actually
speech.
sharing it. It's an amazing speech. I think he covers so brilliantly, the aspect of if you there's nothing called as failing, all that you might fall down, but you actually can get up and try again. You might fall down, get up and try again, and you would succeed in your life. So the
Yeah.
moment you think about failing and you don't initiate or you don't try or you don't repeat it, you have already failed. I think it's a
It's
brilliant
a
sentence that he has used there.
Yeah, it's a funny story because that one speech that you brought up, it hit me like a ton of bricks. So my daughter, right there, she's the love of my life, the best thing that has ever happened to me. My After listening to that speech, my wife and I, almost on a daily basis now, we sit down with her, and now my son too, because he's getting to that age now. He's about 2.5, and we ask her, "Hey, what did you fail at today?" Right now, not what did you succeed at, what did you fail at? Because if you failed at something, that means you tried something, you got out of your comfort zone, you took a chance, and whether you succeeded or not doesn't matter. But if you failed at it, that means you got better. You'll get back on tomorrow and tomorrow. So I was brought up in a world in which, like most people, failure was not accepted, right? You don't fail. Failure was looked down on. And it's so hard because now I'm trying to shift my change and my thought process to no, failure is fine, right? Most companies that are successful, they fail, right? Thomas Edison created the light bulb after failing 1,000 times and said, "Oh, I figured it out after." So you need to be okay with failure. In fact, you need to accept failure, look for it, because right after failure is success. So don't be scared to fail, right? Everybody fails. It's the person who gets up after that knockout punch and says, nope, not down yet, is the one who succeeds. So don't be scared of failure. Absolutely agree with that.
Great, great. In fact, it's a tremendous point that you have mentioned, because if we have met a person who have been consistently succeeding in every aspect of his life, basically mean he's not been successful yet. We
Yeah,
need to find a person who have actually failed and learned out of it, and also be in a position to scale and move to the next level with these learning. You know? So I think
absolutely.
failing is always important than succeeding. Success will be a result of it. Fantastic,
Absolutely.
fantastic, fantastic. Faisal, we have come to the end of this one. I would like to really thank you for your time and sharing your knowledge and your thought process. It was an amazing learning, and I'm sure people who have logged in India, it's around 9:30. So, so people would have had some real good time to have, hearing to this and learning. And I'm sure tomorrow, being a Sunday, they would probably explore reading your, other pointers, and also probably take down, visit your website to listen to the podcasts, which have huge thesaurus of knowledge with respect to this vision. And trust me, I've gone through each and every video that you have posted on your YouTube, as well as podcasts on your. That's what excited me, and I wanted to actually connect with you and have this discussion. Thanks a lot. Before signing off, I would like to actually listen to you, your closing comments and your thought process about this session.
I think it was fantastic. I really, really do. I think it's funny when two people are on the same wavelength, the conversation is not manufactured, right? It's very authentic, it's very genuine. So it's always nice to meet people who believe in the same things that you believe in, who preach the same things that you believe in. So I'm truly appreciative of that. It's because of these collaborations that the people that are starting up and the people who are wanting to grow are able to grow, right? So I want to thank you. I want to thank your audience. And one thing I would like to leave everybody with is, you can see this time as a detractor, or you can see it as an opportunity. I choose to see this as an opportunity. We've all been given the gift of time, something that we've been asking for years now, and we have it. Right. So it just depends on how you're willing to spend that time. Are you willing to sit on the couch, watch TV, complain about what's going on in the world? Or are you willing to take your life into your own hands and say, I'm going to be creative, I'm going to go out there and do what my purpose is, what my passion is, or I'm going to help people, right? So this time will pass, absolutely will. We've been through worse, and as humanity, we always succeed. So just remember, you will get out of this. It just depends on who will get out of this, right? Are you going to be the same person you were when you got into this, or are you going to decide to grow and be better? So my advice is grow, be better, love your family, be with the people that you care about, reach out to somebody you haven't spoken to for a while. Just make sure that you do things that you want to do. Don't have any regrets. Right? Take that chance, and that's what I would leave your audience with.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Faisal. This reminds me of Rhonda Byrne's The Secret.
Yeah,
Be positive and think positive, and everything will be good.
yeah,
Just be happy, find avenues so that, as an individual, you always have a smile on your face,
yeah.
thinking what you can achieve. Great. Thank you. Thanks a
Absolutely.
lot, Faisal. And I look forward to connecting with you to get in deep with some of the pointers that we've discussed today.
Anytime, my pleasure.
Great. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Have a great weekend, Faisal. And it was just checking if we had any specific questions from our audience. But I think, the pointers which we have finally mentioned, they have been covered. So I would like to thank the audience, and have a great weekend. Let's connect again. Thanks,
You as
Faisal.
well.
Thank